Hi, I'm Tom Shue, and today I'm going to talk to you about black and white images. I'm also going to talk to you about working with them in Silver Effects Pro. It's a Nix software and why I like to use it. First of all, let's talk about what makes a good black and white image. I see a lot of people make black and white images out of ones that, you know, may be too busy or, they just see, hey, it's going to look good in black and white, so let's make it black and white. But they don't really realize, what they're actually talking about. Sometimes they get lucky and find a good image, but I'm going to give you a list of some of the things that make good black and white images. First of all, let's look at this image. This image would not be a good candidate for black and white. And the reason why is there's a lot of color, and this picture is about color. Okay? So let's just look at it real quick. If we were to try to make this black and white, you click on it, and you see that nothing really changed except the impact of the image is gone. You can come into these sliders and say you can change some of the blue and maybe darken the sky some, but see then it starts affecting that blue cast on the car. Maybe we'll try the green. In the green we can come down here, but we're not doing a whole lot to this image. And the reason why it's not really a good candidate for black and white. Let's go back. What you want to look for converting to black and white is something that's monochromatic. And if you don't know what monochromatic means, I'll explain it to you. It means that everything in the image lives in a same hue, a same tone. So, for example, like this one here, I've never converted this to black and white, but I just know that it's based on a patina of greens, and it fades to a tan. I just know looking at this image, it's monochromatic, and it's going to be great for black and white. Let's take a look and see what happens. Go into the Develop module. We turn it to black and white, and now we can start to adjust some things like these greens. And you can see that we're affecting selected areas of that green, but we can control contrast in varied parts of the images, or varied parts of the image. Just with these sliders, it doesn't, this isn't really an intuitive black and white test, but the image definitely has depth and draws you in black and white. Let's go back to color. Let's look at some more images, and then we'll go into Silver Effects Pro and we'll play with a few. Like this one here. This is monochromatic. Everything lives in that golden tan color. Let's go to another thing that you can look for. Midday Sun. When you're dealing with midday light, it's like an even light that's across your scene. Those can make great black and white images. Let's take a peek at what this one will do. So if we go into black and white, you can see that she's kind of dark, but we can adjust this green to lighter or darker to make her stand out. There's a lot of green adjustment, and it's to taste. And these oranges and yellows will affect her hair and her skin. You have to remember what the composition of the human skin is. It's kind of like oranges, tans, and yellows, and reds. So you have to try to think of the sliders that would affect the part of the image that you're looking for. You can also just go into the image in Lightroom and just grab a particular area, and it will just adjust the color that you needed, or that you grabbed by grabbing this little bug right here, I call it. Let's go back into color, and let's move out of that. This image here, again, it's kind of one of those midday shots. And the reason why these midday shots work so well is because there's not a lot of contrast. Obviously, there's some contrast between the bottles in this box, but the overall scene between the background and the foreground, there's not a lot of contrast differences. This would make a good black and white image. We'll go to Develop and we'll look at it real quick. And you can see that it's a neat black and white image. And you can adjust these greens and darken things or lighten things. And the same with some blues. Actually, there's not a lot of blue in this image, but these oranges affecting that brown box. And there are some reds down here, but that's not really affecting much. The yellow is because that's all that light that's coming in through the ceiling. Okay? So you can play with these sliders. However, you get most of your controls inside like a clarity and setting a black point and a white point. So there's our black point, here's our white point. We can determine how much shadow information we want, how much highlight information we want, and then we can darken or brighten the image with our exposure. That's a pretty neat looking black and white image. And I knew it was going to be a nice black and white image before I got started. Let's look at just a couple more. Let's choose something like this one. This image is all about color. However, we have a really bold set of yellows in here, these golds, that are going to make a neat image because we'll be able to control how those flowers look. They should be kind of bright. And again, I've never looked at this in black and white. So let's just see if I predict correctly. Sometimes colored images do work, and it's kind of flat. But the oranges did go white, like we said, and we can darken those. And then we'll take the green and we'll slide that up. You see the color, it just didn't work very well for a black and white image. There's just too much color. This image is about color. We need something that's monochromatic, or the whole image is of one palette. If the whole images would have been of the greens or the yellows, it would have worked well. Some other times that you'll get good use out of black and white images if you have mixed lighting conditions. Say you have flash going on, but those overhead lights of the scene you were in, you're mixing the cool color of the flash with those orange lights, and it just ended up being a horrible photograph just from a color standpoint. Turn it to black and white and you'll save it. Let's look at this one in black and white. Going to the develop module, and this one's going to be neat because I know that these flowers are going to stand out because they're white to this purple. It's going to be a gradient, and then we can control the green, making it darker or brighter. See that they just stand it out. They stand out on their own, whether they are in color or black and white. So the key is to have images that stand out on their own, images that are monochromatic, midday lighting situations where it's even kind of lighting, and things that kind of stand out in the scene or have great composition, they can stand on their own in black and white. So let's see what we can do with this one. We'll grab the greens and we can either make them more subtle or make them darker. And these magentas and purples are going to affect how the center of that flower renders. So we can make it more or less obvious. So that's kind of a neat black and white image. Let's go back into color. And let's pick one that we could use in post. Let's say in Silver Effects Pro. I'm going to look at my quick collection real quick. Folder, quick collection. Nope, it didn't make it in there. That's quite okay. Let's use this penguin one. I've never processed this image before. I threw it in the quick collection because it is mainly monotone except this little bit of orange and yellow. So I think this would make a pretty neat black and white image. And to do that, we're going to go inside Nix Silver Effects. So we're going to edit in Silver Effects Pro 2. Let this interface load up. I'll have to resize it real quick, and I'll show you how neat this program is. This is really a neat program. I process all my black and whites in this software because it gives you so much exacting control. Instead of just a few sliders here and there, you've got like all kinds of control. First thing you can do is you can get rid of that sidebar. You can show the sidebars. It has a history, so once you've done something, you can go back and undo it. You can adjust the controls side by side. You can see them split views, and you can rotate this on top or bottom. I'm just going to work with it as a whole. Over here on the left, it'll give you a bunch of presets that you can kind of start with. If you're not interested in any of these presets, you can just go right over to the right hand side and start working the image. Down here is like a zone system. It's telling me right now the only thing solid white in the image, which is zone 10, is this area that's kind of blue zebra striped. Okay? And everything that's solid black in the image is none. There's a little bit in this fin right here. So we don't really have a black point, and we don't really have a white point set. And then we can see that most of this image is made up of midtones. Okay? Zone 9 and Zone 1 are the zones that should hold detail. And this is back from the black and white film days. Is the zone systems. Ansel Adams used that to predict where his shadow information and his highlight information would be when he was capturing the image and developing it. Okay, so he could have a really dynamic image. Sorry, I'm losing my voice for some reason here. So let's just get started here. First of all, if you don't want to start by raw, you can select one of these presets, and it could get you started. Okay, and you don't have to select all. Say if you could just go to your favorites or modern. I don't make favorites. I just start off with one that I think looks pretty cool, and then move from there. This is showing lots of detail in the back. So let's just start with this one, full dynamic. Right here we can control the highlights. If we want to knock down the highlights or increase the highlights, we can. This will grab your midtones. This handles the shadow detail. Now, you don't have to use all of these controls. You can close them and just use brightness. Okay? When you twirl down these controls, it gives you all those sub-menu controls. And this is how you really get your exacting control of what's going on in your image. So this is what's called dynamic brightness. It brightens everything, but it doesn't blow out all the detail. Lets you adjust your shadows and stuff, and then you can bring it back in dynamic. Contrast, we can amplify the whites. And you see it doesn't like just do a global. It only grabs the whites. So if you want to see what it's affecting, you can come down here in the zone system and click on it, and it will show you that there's no whites in the scene. So it's not going to have a lot of control under amplifying the whites. Now let's look and see. We click on it, and there's some whites, but not a lot. And then we can amplify the blacks, increase them or decrease them. And soft contrast, it's a little different than contrast. It doesn't like just cram the contrast up so high that it just makes it black like that, you see? Soft contrast is like a subtle control. It allows you to adjust the contrast, but in a real subtle way that kind of gives you a really fine control. Now, structure. Structure is something that is the most incredible piece of slider technology in any software. It's like the clarity slider, but it's on steroids. So let's take a peek, and you can see the structure. It just pulls out all that micro contrast and makes the image pop. Now, if you're not looking for something that hard, you can soften things up by dragging structure down. Now what protect tonality means is that with all the adjustments that you've made, you can go in and protect them and make it go back to the original image in the shadow and the highlight area. So this is what the original image would look like. This is what it would look like if we didn't protect the original image at all by just changing these sliders. And then this gives you a control to balance between the original image. And I'm not talking about the contrast, I'm talking about the tones. You could also do selective control, which means that I could apply a set of controls to a specific part of the image. Say, for example, I only wanted to affect, say, maybe the head of this little guy. I can change the contrast on his face. The structure, I can like make it less structure or more structure. And it's instead of a global adjustment, it is a specific adjustment. So if I want to amplify the blacks, and this is fine structure, so this is even a finer control. So you can start to see it starting to bring out all that silver in his head. And then you can colorize it if you wanted to selectively color it. But we won't play with this. You can add multiple control points. So say if I wanted to do it to this bird too. So I can select this one, and then I can shift select the second one. And now when I move one, you'll see that it affects the other one exactly the same. The brightness controls are going up and down on those birds together. So I can add multiple control points and control them all from one as a group or ungroup them. This is how you would group them. This is how you'd ungroup them. If we want to get rid of them, we can just delete them. Yes, by grabbing that trash can. Some of the other things you can do is, back in the film days, you used to be able to put a color filter in front of your lens. So if you put a red filter on, it would change the contrast of stuff that was red or blue or green. So if you put a green filter in front of your lens, this is the effect you would get with this particular image. A yellow filter, an orange filter, a red filter, a blue filter. So this allows you to apply a filter to your image the same way as you would if you put it in front of your lens. You can increase or decrease the effect or the strength of the filter, or you can get rid of the filter altogether. There's a bunch of different film types you can choose. Say if we wanted to look at what a Kodak, an old 32 ISO film would look, or Pan F50, or Agfa 100, or Delta 100, or 100 T-Max Pro. These are all profiles built in to mimic those old films, Neopan 1600. We won't get into that too much. You can also add grain to your image, like silver grain. Toning, this is really cool. Toning, these are what they call finishing adjustment. Before we do that, it also has a tone curve. So if we wanted to increase the highlights and put like an S curve on the image, maybe it's a little too much in the highlights. And you can control your black point and your white point, as well as where your midtones fall off. Alright, that looks pretty good. So let's go down here to this this toning. Toning allows you to put, like, okay, what toning came from was back in the days when you used paper. After you got done developing your image, you put it in toner, and it basically dyed your image. Wherever there was silver left was where all the black was. It didn't hold it as much as the highlighted areas. So you could tone your image or color, basically colorize a black and white image. This will let you pick these type of, like if you use selenium or a cyanotype, which are blues. Okay, so say if we pick this and we wanted it more blue, you pick cyanotype, it's a specific set of settings. If you change the strength, it's going to an unknown. It doesn't know what this is, and you can save it as a preset. So let's increase it a little bit. And this is the hue of it, okay? So if we wanted it to be a little more black and whitish, but still have that kind of blue tone to it. And this is the silver toning. This is trying to mimic how much silver was in the paper, because that's the way all photographic paper used to be. Black and white paper was with silver. You wash away silver particles, it would let the paper go white. You didn't wash them away. This was actually in the negative and the paper, and the silver particles would give it like a gleam. Well, this is how you could tone that silver. Okay, this would be heavily toned silver, and this would be not so toned. So you can control how much toning happens. You can balance it. And then, this is where all of the silver would be in the black areas. You can also tone the paper, because a solid white area would actually be the paper base. That'd be the white showing through of the paper. So whatever color paper you had, if it was a kind of like a yellow white, all of the white parts of your image of the black and white would be yellow. So you can go in and tone your paper too. So you have to choose what kind of hue you want your paper to be, and now all the white areas of the image will be affected. And this is the strength of that. Now, I'm not saying that that's a great effect, but this is what they're doing. They're giving you full control as if you were working with original black and white images. You can also put a four corner burn on this image. You can put a vignette. So let's do this. Like, this is a lens fall. These are presets, and you can see what they would do to the image. Okay, so since these are the subject, we probably wouldn't want your eyes to wander out to the edge of the image. So we could put in a vignette. Okay, let's try maybe this one. Okay, and you can control how much of the vignette happens. We'll just leave it on 100%. Okay, you can also place the center by coming here, because if you have like a square image, the vignette might not fall right. Okay, next thing you do is burn the edges. Burning was a technique that they did with tools. They would hide or expose light to the paper when they were making the image. So this would either burn it or dodge it, the same way you did in Photoshop, but it was done in a darkroom by either letting more light fall or taking light away, burning and dodging. They'd make all these special tools out of stirrers and tongue depressors and coat hangers with paper and tape wrapped around them. You name it, they did it. So we're going to do a 4 corner. Let's do all edges 1. So this is going to, you can select them all just by clicking here. So we're going to do all edges. And we can control here how much we're going to do on each edge, because each edge is different. So obviously the sides need more than the top and bottom because they're already black. And this is how much size it is. So I'm going to drag the strength up, and then I'm going to bring the size back. So I don't want your eyes to fall off the paper, because your eyes will go right to the brightest area of the image. So come over here and we'll burn this size. Bring it in, and then we'll bring our size back. Might need more. And this is the transition, like the feathering. And we could do a little bit to the bottom. Bring the size back and feather it. You kind of see how it's encroaching to the image? That's done with the transition. And they also let you do image borders. So you can choose these different borders for your image. Let me turn off the zone control. So, say example you wanted a black frame. We could choose a black frame, See how your eyes are drawn to the outside edge? So we'll just choose a black frame, and we'll just choose Save. Now to bring that image into Lightroom, and there we have an overly exaggerated, overly post-worked black and white image. It looks terrible. However, I think I've showed you the kind of control that you can have. Less is more. Subtlety is the name of the game when you're doing things. Sometimes you want something really dramatic, but a couple penguins isn't something that needs to be really dramatic. So, I want to thank you all for taking time to visit my blog today. Hope you learned a few things, and until next time, we'll see you soon.